Mojang introduced some major changes to the way nether portals work in 1.21.5. I know I just made a video about chunk loaders in 1.21.4 back in January, but this design by Dark does not work anymore. Additionally, I couldn't find any designs for 1.21.5 that still work, so I made my own, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. I believe my new 1.25 chunk loader design is the easiest to build, and I'm also going to talk about the differences between using this one and using an Ender Pearl chunk loader. So let's start building. Everything you're going to need for this build is inside this barrel right here. So you're going to need 4 powered rails, you're going to need 4 levers, you're going to need a bunch of building blocks. I just grabbed a bunch of stone. You're going to need 3 minecarts, and then you're going to need 14 obsidian, 10 to 14 obsidian just to make a nether portal, and of course flint and steel to light the nether portal. Let's grab all these things and start building. So we're going to start by pressing F3 plus G on our keyboard. That's going to show us the chunk borders. Chunks are 16 by 16 block areas, and Minecraft is made up of a bunch of these things, and that's what we're going to do for our chunk loader. We want to build our chunk loader more or less in the center of this chunk. So we're going to start by building our standard nether portal. This is 4 blocks along the bottom and then 5 blocks tall. 5 and then boop, boop, just like that. We've used all of our obsidian. Now we can light the portal, and we should probably jump through right now just to see what's on the other side. Okay, if you're in a terrible biome like me, you can fill some of this up. You can even go through and dig out the other side a little bit if you're able to, just to kind of give yourself a little bit of room to work here. Watch out for lava. And once you have a little bit of area cleared out, we can go back through the portal. You can actually start on either side of the portal. I just thought it'd be easier to see in the overworld. So we're going to start right here on one side of the portal, and we're just going to do this little L shape. And then we're going to add a powered rail right there. And then up top, we're going to add a lever and turn that on. Then we're going to go around the other side, and right where that one's lined up, we're going to do exactly the same thing. Block, block, block. Then we're going to put down a rail, and then of course a lever, and turn that on. Now let's go back through the portal. Make sure you make note of where the rails are actually pointing. We're going to do exactly the same thing on this side. Only this time we can use the floor to our advantage here. So that's there, and then that is there. Turn that back on, and now let's go back through. Oh wait, don't forget to turn on the levers. Now go back through. And now we just need to place down our minecarts. So we'll start with 1. That's going to immediately go through. We'll start with another. That's 2. That's going to go through, and you can see that they're already starting to pop back again. Now we just want to add one more third minecart here. This is going to mean the minecarts start bumping into each other. They're going to bounce around, and they're going to alternate between going in and going out of the portal. And this is going to keep this chunk loaded. That's it. That's the whole thing. So if you made it this far in the video, I would really appreciate you clicking that like button and maybe subscribe to the channel so you never miss any more of these fantastic tutorials. Okay, so the way this chunk loader works is it is going to keep this chunk loaded. So I've gone ahead and highlighted this chunk in this green wool here. This is the centralized chunk that the chunk loader is built in. It's going to keep this loaded. It's also going to keep this set of chunks loaded. So this is a 3x3 grid of chunks inside of the blue wool here. This is going to stay completely loaded, and interestingly enough, to a lesser extent, these chunks out here, which is a 5x5 chunk area, are also going to stay partially loaded. Now, you're not going to get the same sort of processing out here that you do in the inner parts of the chunks. For example, inside this 3x3 area and inside this green area, these chunks are going to process exactly the same as each other. What you're going to get is random ticks being processed in here and everything as if the player was nearby, which is fantastic. Now, outside of these chunks, over here in the outer 5 chunks, the red area, I like to call this the redstone processing area, because even though random ticks won't happen in this area, so that's things like crops growing or grass spreading, that won't happen out here. It will happen inside the blue area, but it won't happen out here. What will happen out here is redstone processing. So if you've got items in a hopper or a dropper, if you've got an item sorter that's sending items along hoppers, or if you've got a super smelter working, all of that is going to work inside of this 5x5 area, which is absolutely fantastic. We should probably talk about the differences between this kind of chunk loader and the Ender Pearl chunk loader. To build the Ender Pearl chunk loader, you're going to need the items in this barrel. 1 piece of soul sand, 1 water bucket, 5 pieces of kelp, and an ender pearl, maybe a few extra ender pearls just in case you accidentally spoil your ender pearl or hit it against the side while you're building. By the way, if you don't have 5 kelp, you could just use 5 water buckets instead. To build this one, you're just going to pick a square somewhere in the middle of your chunk and you're going to dig down 6 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you're going to grab your soul sand, jump and place that. Now you're going to grab your water, and then at the very top block, you're going to place that right down. While you're underwater here, let's rise up, placing all 5 pieces of kelp, and then once they're placed, swim all the way back down to the bottom and break the bottom piece of kelp. That's going to shoot you all the way back up to the top because you've now made an not infinite, but a bubble column where every block is a source block. Now you're just going to take one of your ender pearls, shift and go as close to the middle as you can, and then right click to throw that ender pearl down there. And it should just bob up and down in the water, and if you've done that correctly, that's just going to sit there forever. No more chance of that hitting anything, it's good. Ender pearl stasis chambers work very similar to the way the full Minecraft chunk loader that I built over here works, with one very important exception. Remember how with the big chunk loader I said that this area right here and all of this blue area process exactly the same way, and then out here in the 5x5 area, this would only be redstone processing chunks? That is true for the full chunk loader, but for the little chunk loader, the ender pearl only chunk loader, only this chunk in the middle here, the one that the ender pearl is actually in, will process random ticks. So all of your crops growing and other things that rely on random ticks like copper aging, that's only going to happen in this chunk. And then outside this chunk, in the 3x3 area, this is still going to be loaded, but this area is now redstone processing chunks, which means this is the area where your super smelters, your item sorters, your hoppers transferring items, that sort of stuff will work, but random tick will not work in this area. So your crops growing, your copper aging will not work all the way out here, unfortunately, with the ender pearl design. If you want to use the area out here, you're going to need to build the big one. Mob farms do not work with chunk loaders. They rely on a player being nearby. If you build a creeper farm or you build a generic mob farm for dropping skeletons or zombies or things like that, those mobs will absolutely not spawn when a player is outside of about 128 blocks. So don't think that your mob farm will keep working just because you chunk load it. It will not. It's not the way it works. The one exception is iron golem farms, iron farms, because iron golem spawning relies on a completely different mechanic than regular hostile mob spawning, so your iron farm will still work. That's great news. Couple other things to note here. For the big chunk loader, the one that uses the nether portals, this is going to load the 5x5 area in the overworld. It's also going to load a 5x5 area exactly the same with the regular chunks, the processed chunks, and the redstone chunks in the nether, which is really great. So you can actually have a 5x5 area in the nether loaded as well using a single chunk loader, or 3x3 if you want to keep it all random tick processing chunks. The ender pearl one, unfortunately, doesn't load the nether at all, which should be obvious because it's not using a nether portal to send any items back and forth. I should have mentioned this before, but if you want to turn this thing off, all you got to do is turn off any one of these levers. Eventually the minecarts will come to rest, and now chunk loading is no longer happening. And if you want to start it again, guess what? You flip the switch, and it just picks up where it left off and keeps on going. This should be robust enough to survive server restarts and you logging on and off and all that stuff. So this is a pretty safe one to use. The one thing that you do have to be consciously aware of is making sure that your nether portals link properly. If you don't know how to link nether portals, basically look up a tutorial for that. It's taking the coordinates in the overworld and dividing by 8. That's the most important thing that you've got to remember. Look up a tutorial, like I said. It's really easy to do. The math is pretty simple. Just make sure you do it. And if you accidentally have problems where portals are linking to other portals, this isn't the tutorial to help you. Sorry, there's too many complicated things with linking nether portals, but hopefully if you don't have any other nether portals around, you won't have any problems with this. The other thing I should mention is that this is great for servers, works fantastic on servers because it will keep the chunks loaded even if you are offline. If your server is running, if you have one of those types of servers that runs 24 hours a day, even when you're not online, this chunk loader will keep running. It'll keep growing your crops. It'll keep processing your iron farm. It'll keep doing all of those fantastic things that normally you'd need a player online to AFK for. The other one down here, the Ender Pearl one, well, this isn't going to do that because the way Ender Pearls work is as soon as you log off, the Ender Pearl disappears. When you log back on, the Ender Pearl will appear again, and then all of your chunks will continue to load again. But obviously, the problem there is if you're in a single-player world, it doesn't matter which version of this you use because when you shut down your single-player world, it doesn't stay running whether you're connected or not. It's only really a server thing to keep it running when you're not online. So this minecart chunk loader here was designed in 1.21.5 and is tested and working guaranteed in 1.21.5 if you build it exactly like I've shown in this video. Unfortunately, this only works on Java Edition. Chunk loaders in general do not work at all on Bedrock, so if you're using Bedrock, please don't complain that this doesn't work. This has to be done on Java Edition. It also works with the minecart experimental features enabled or disabled, so it doesn't matter which one you have, this works both ways. Mojang does have a history of changing these sorts of things, so keep an eye on the pinned comments below and in the description. If anything changes in future versions of Minecraft, I will update this design and I will probably be releasing a new video or at least posting comments about changes, simple fixes you can make. So keep an eye out for them. If you got some value out of this video and you want to see more, I would highly encourage you to click that like button. Maybe subscribe so you never miss an episode. My name is Vid, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!